The crowded alien market was loud and hot, and every voice mixed together like a storm of sounds. Marcus Halley, a human traveler and cargo runner, walked through the narrow path between shops. Searching for spare ship parts, he was tired from the long journey. But something strange pulled his attention to the far corner of the market. The crowd avoided that place like it was cursed. It was called the clearance row, the place where unwanted people were offered for the lowest price. Some were criminals, some were sick, some were simply unlucky. But today, the air felt heavier than usual. As if something painful was hidden there, Marcus heard a tired voice shouting again and again. "Buy one, take the other free. Please, someone." Anyone. No one even slowed down. Some aliens laughed, some shook their heads, and some walked away with disgust. Curiosity pushed Marcus closer, and as he stepped toward the vendor's stall, the noise around him faded like a distant echo. He saw two young alien women sitting on the dusty ground, their backs touching, their hands tied with a worn cloth. They looked weak, scared, and completely lost. Their skin had a soft, pale glow, a color Marcus had never seen before. Their hair was long and messy, and their clothes were torn, showing bruises that told a sad story without words. The vendor, an old reptilian alien, looked exhausted and frustrated. He sighed when he noticed Marcus standing there. "You human, you want cheap workers? Buy one, take the other free. No extra cost, no extra trouble." Marcus felt something twist inside his chest. Why is no one taking them? He asked in a low voice. The vendor leaned forward and whispered like a man confessing a secret. "They are from a peaceful species. Too soft, too gentle. No one wants gentle slaves. They break easily, they cry easily, they are not useful." Marcus looked at the sisters again, and this time he noticed small details. One of them had her arm wrapped around the other protectively. The younger sister's eyes were red from crying. The older one stared at Marcus with a mix of fear and hope. There was a burned mark on her wrist, a symbol of punishment from a cruel owner. Something inside Marcus tightened with anger, but he kept his voice calm. What happened to them? He asked. The vendor shrugged. They were taken from a farm world after raiders attacked. They were sold 3 times, returned 3 times. Their last owner got angry and left them with me. He said they were worthless. Worthless. The word hit Marcus like a punch. No living being should ever hear that word about themselves. The older sister spoke softly, her voice shaking. "My name is Riley. This is my sister Saren. Please, we will work hard. We will not cause trouble." Marcus saw Saren hide behind her sister's shoulder. Trembling like a frightened child, he took a slow breath, fighting the urge to show his anger. "How much?" he asked. The vendor blinked in surprise. "You want them? Both of them?" Marcus nodded once. The vendor almost dropped his ledger in shock. No one wanted even one of them. "You may take both for the price of one, human. Just take them before their owner returns, or they will be beaten again." Marcus didn't think twice. "I'll take them," he said firmly. The vendor quickly untied the sisters and handed them over like someone giving away old junk. But Marcus didn't see junk. He saw 2 souls who had suffered too much for too long. As they walked through the market, the sisters stayed close behind him, not daring to breathe loudly. Whenever aliens stared at them, they shrank back. Expecting another insult or another slap, Marcus walked faster, leading them away from the loud chaos and into a quieter part of town. When they finally reached the docking area, Marcus stopped and turned to them. "You're safe here," he said in a gentle voice. Riley lowered her head, unsure how to respond. "No one is safe from him," she whispered. Marcus frowned. "From who?" Saren answered this time, her voice barely a breath. "The noble who owned us before. He does not like losing what he thinks is his. A shadow crossed Riley's face. He will come for us. He always comes. Marcus felt a wave of cold anger spread through him like ice. Not while you're with me, he said firmly. The sisters looked at him, surprised by the strength in his voice. They had never heard anyone speak like that for them. Not once in their entire lives. He guided them into his ship, the Starling. A small but strong vessel that had carried him through many dangers. Inside, the sisters hesitated, standing near the door like frightened animals, unsure if they were allowed to enter. Marcus pointed toward the small seating area. Sit, rest, breathe, he said softly. They obeyed slowly, unsure how to act in front of a human who was not shouting or hitting them. Marcus prepared water and simple food, placing it gently in front of them. Saren flinched at the sound of a plate touching the table, expecting anger, but Marcus only stepped back and waited. The sisters ate quietly, like people who had learned to fear every movement. As Marcus watched them, he realized something. This was not just a rescue. This was the beginning of something bigger, something dangerous, and something deeply human. And far away in the dark of space, someone was already searching for the two worthless sisters who now sat in the Starling. Safe for the first time, but danger was coming. Closer than any of them knew, the Starling lifted from the docking pad with a soft hum, and the city lights faded behind them like distant fireflies. Marcus checked the controls while keeping an eye on the two sisters sitting quietly near the back of the cockpit. They watched everything with fear and confusion, unsure if they were safe or only moving toward another kind of danger. Riley held Saren's hand tightly, their fingers shaking as the ship climbed through the clouds. Both sisters looked like they had forgotten how to relax. Their eyes followed Marcus's every movement, waiting for commands, waiting for anger, waiting for something bad to happen. Marcus spoke softly. You don't have to be afraid here. The sisters didn't answer, but their shoulders lowered just a little. He set the ship on autopilot and walked toward them slowly, making sure not to scare them. You must be hungry, Marcus said as he placed a warm packet of food on the table. Saren hesitated, then whispered, Are we allowed to eat? Her voice broke Marcus's heart like glass under his boot. Yes, of course. Eat as much as you want, he said gently. Riley pulled the food closer, but still watched Marcus carefully. As if expecting punishment for touching it, the sisters ate quietly, their movements small and cautious like people who had been trained to survive by being invisible. Marcus sat opposite them, keeping his distance, not wanting to make them uncomfortable. After a few moments, he finally asked, Why were you in the market? What really happened? Riley exchanged a nervous glance with Saren, then took a deep breath. We lived on a small farm world, she began, her voice trembling. We grew fruit trees and collected water from the river. It was a quiet place, a peaceful place, Saren added in a soft whisper. Until the raiders came, Marcus felt a chill run through him. Raiders attacked many outer worlds, taking anything or anyone they liked. But they usually preferred fighters, workers, or rare skilled beings. Not peaceful farm women, Riley continued. They burned our village. They took many of us. Including us, Saren squeezed her sister's hand. They said we were weak, too gentle, not useful. She looked down at her shaking hands. They pushed us, shouted at us, and sold us to a noble who liked collecting people as if they were toys. Marcus clenched his jaw. Even in a galaxy full of aliens, cruelty had the same smell everywhere. Riley lowered her gaze and added, He grew bored of us. He said we were not interesting. He returned us to the market, Saren swallowed. But he said he would come back for us later, to punish us for disappointing him. Marcus felt something dangerous rising in his chest. Anger, pure and sharp. He didn't show it. He didn't want to scare them, but inside, He made a promise he didn't speak aloud. No one would hurt these sisters again. Not while he was alive. The ship beeped softly, pulling Marcus's attention to the control panel. A blinking message flashed on the screen. Unknown signal detected. Marcus frowned and opened the data stream. It was a tracking ping. Someone was following the Starling. His stomach tightened. There was only one person who would track a ship over 2 unwanted sisters. Riley noticed his expression. "Is something wrong?" she asked quietly. Marcus didn't want to alarm them. But he refused to lie. "We might have company," he said gently. Saren's eyes widened with fear. "He found us," she whispered. "Maybe," Marcus replied. "But finding us is not the same as catching us." He turned off the interior lights, switched the controls to stealth mode, and changed their flight path toward a quiet asteroid belt. The sisters watched him move quickly, their fear growing with each step he took. Marcus gave them a calm look. "Listen, you are not going back to anyone," he said. "I don't care who is chasing us. You are safe with me." For a moment, both sisters stared at him in shock, as if they had never heard someone speak so confidently for their safety. Riley blinked back tears. "Why?" she whispered. Marcus paused, then answered simply, "Because no one deserves what you went through. And because someone has to do the right thing." The ship shuddered slightly as it entered the asteroid field. Marcus kept his hands firm on the controls, guiding the Starling through floating rocks as large as towers. The tracking signal grew stronger. The enemy ship was following them in silence. "Shadows moving behind shadows," Saren whispered. "He won't stop." Marcus glanced at her with a steady look. "Then we won't stop either." He switched on the rear camera, showing a large dark ship slipping through the asteroid dust like a hungry predator. The sisters gasped and held each other tighter. Marcus, however, didn't panic. His eyes narrowed as he studied the enemy's movement. He wasn't just running. He was planning. Humans were famous for that in the galaxy, being dangerous when cornered, and Marcus was no different. As the Starling darted deeper into the field, the sisters realized something important. This human wasn't afraid of their former owner. He wasn't afraid of danger. He was fighting for them, something no one had ever done before. The part ends with a tense moment as Marcus whispers, "Hold on, this is only the beginning." And the enemy ship closes in, searching, hunting, getting closer with every heartbeat. The asteroid field stretched out like a broken maze of stone and dust, each spinning rock casting long shadows across the Starling's hull. Marcus tightened his grip on the controls, weaving the ship between drifting boulders the size of houses. The engines hummed softly. The lights dimmed to keep their heat signature low, and the entire ship felt like it was holding its breath. Behind them, the enemy ship moved slowly but steadily, scanning each gap in the asteroids, hunting like a silent predator that had already decided the outcome. Riley and Saren stood near the cockpit door, frozen with fear, their hands locked together as if letting go would make the danger real. Saren whispered, "He found us. He really found us." Marcus didn't look away from the controls. "Finding is not the same as catching," he repeated, his voice steady like steel under pressure. But Riley shook her head. "You don't understand. He's not alone. He has soldiers. They do anything he commands." Marcus finally glanced back at them, his eyes sharp. "Then let them come. We're not giving you back." The sisters stared at him, shocked again by how easily he said those words. No hesitation, no fear, just a simple truth spoken by a human who refused to bend. A soft alarm beeped on the dashboard. The Starling's sensors picked up small drones scattering from the enemy ship, tiny mechanical spheres drifting through the field like poisonous insects searching for prey. Marcus muttered under his breath, "He's deploying seekers." Saren's voice shook. "What are seekers?" Marcus answered while adjusting the ship's path. "Mini drones that smell out heat and movement. Once they find a target, they call the main ship." Riley stepped forward, her voice trembling. Can we hide? Marcus shook his head slowly. In open space, no, but we can outrun them. He pushed the throttle to half, shifting the Starling into a tight gap between two spinning asteroids. The ship scraped the edge, sending sparks across the hull. Saren flinched and covered her head. Marcus spoke gently. It's okay. That's just metal meeting rock. The screens lit up again. 3 seeker drones locked onto them and moved in fast. They glowed faintly in the dark, their engines flickering like hungry blue eyes. Marcus swore under his breath. He flicked a switch, and the Starling's heat vents opened wide, releasing a burst of steam into the vacuum. The sudden cloud confused the seekers, sending 2 drifting off course, but the third stayed locked on target. It zipped toward the Starling like a knife through water. Rayleigh gasped. It's coming right at us. Marcus's fingers danced over the controls. It won't reach us. He turned the ship upside down, letting gravity shift inside the cabin. The sisters grabbed onto the nearest railing, their bodies shaking as the Starling spun through a narrow passage between 2 massive rocks. The seeker drone clipped a stone and exploded in a flash of blue light. Saren covered her eyes. Riley whispered, "That was too close." Marcus nodded slightly. "Yes, and the next ones will be closer." The tracking signal strengthened again. The enemy ship was adapting, pushing deeper into the asteroid field, moving faster now that the seekers had revealed their general location. The dark hull appeared briefly on the rear cameras, sharp and menacing with glowing red lines along its edges. It was a hunter's ship, built for pursuit. A soft, eerie voice echoed through the speakers. It was the noble, human. "Return the sisters and I will let you live." Riley trembled. Saren hid her face. Marcus responded with calm defiance. "I'm not giving you anything," the noble laughed. A cold and empty sound. "You think you can hide in stones? You think humans are brave? You are only delaying your death." Marcus muted the channel and shook his head. "I've heard better insults," he said quietly. The sisters stared at him, stunned by his confidence. In their world, humans were rumored to be stubborn and unpredictable, but they had never met one who would risk death for them. Rayleigh's voice broke softly. You don't even know us." Marcus answered without looking back. "I don't need to know you to protect you." The enemy ship launched boarding pods, small missile-like crafts that could attach themselves to a hull. Marcus saw them on the scanner and felt the tension sharpen. "They're trying to board us," he said. Saren shook violently. No. If they enter the ship, he'll take us." Marcus unbuckled his seat and stood. "Then we won't let them enter." He opened a storage panel and pulled out a compact kinetic rifle. The sisters stared at the weapon with wide eyes. Marcus saw their fear and softened his voice. "This is only for defense. I won't let them near you." The ship shook as the first boarding pod struck the hull like a hammer. Lights flickered. Alarms rang, and tension filled the air like electricity. Marcus raised his rifle and turned toward the corridor. Riley whispered in terror, "What will you do?" Marcus answered with the calm of a man who had made his choice. "I'll stop them." The part ends as a loud metallic screech echoes through the ship. The boarding pod is opening. The enemy soldiers are forcing their way in, and Marcus steps forward, ready to fight for the sisters who were once called worthless. The Starling shook again as the boarding pod drilled into the hull, metal groaning like a wounded beast in the dark. Alarms flashed red across the cockpit, and the lights flickered as if the ship itself was afraid. Marcus stepped into the narrow corridor, rifle raised, every muscle tight and ready. Behind him, Riley and Saren huddled together near the wall, trembling like leaves in a storm. They had seen soldiers break doors before, but this time felt different. This time, a human was standing between them and the danger. The pod finally broke open with a sharp crack, sending sparks showering across the floor. A thick smoke drifted out, and through it stepped the first armored soldier, tall and covered in black plating with glowing red slits for eyes. 2 more followed, their boots echoing like thunder inside the small ship. Riley gasped. Saren covered her mouth to stop a scream. The lead soldier raised a weapon and shouted, "Stand down, human. Surrender the sisters." Marcus didn't move. His rifle stayed pointed, his eyes cold. "No," he said simply, the single word cutting through the smoke like a blade. The soldiers fired first, bright energy bolts slicing through the air. Marcus dove behind a support beam, the blasts burning holes into the metal walls. The sisters screamed and ducked behind a crate, covering their heads. Marcus fired back with sharp precision, each shot echoing down the corridor. The humans' bullets weren't energy. They were kinetic rounds, fast and heavy, impossible for energy shields to block completely. One shot hit the first soldier's shoulder, sending him spinning backward. Another bullet struck the second soldier's helmet, cracking its face shield. The third soldier charged forward, swinging a metal baton that crackled with electricity. Marcus rolled aside, grabbed the edge of a panel, and threw himself upward. The soldier hit the wall instead, sparks flying as the baton scraped metal. Marcus aimed quickly and fired 3 rounds into the soldier's chest plate. The armor dented, then cracked, and the soldier fell with a heavy thud. Riley and Saren watched with wide, terrified eyes. They had never seen anyone fight so fiercely, especially not for them. But more soldiers climbed out of the boarding pod. 3, 4, 5 armored shapes filling the small corridor with death in their hands. Marcus breathed hard, but did not fall back. He braced himself against the wall, ready for the next wave. Riley suddenly whispered, "There is a weak point in their armor." Marcus glanced back quickly. "Where?" Saren pointed with shaking fingers. "The neck joint, just under the helmet." "It's the only place not fully covered." Marcus nodded once. "Good. Stay low." The next soldier rushed forward. Firing rapidly, Marcus dove sideways, rolled, and fired at the neck joint exactly where Saren had said. The bullet pierced the gap, and the soldier collapsed instantly. Riley gasped in shock. "You? You trusted us." Marcus didn't look away from the attackers. "Of course I did," he said. 2 more soldiers advanced. Using shields to block the bullets, Marcus switched to a different tactic. He shot the ceiling pipes above them. A burst of hot steam exploded downward, blinding the soldiers and making them stumble. Marcus used the moment to sprint forward, slam one soldier with his shoulder, and fire at the neck gaps of both. 2 more armored bodies hit the floor. Only 1 soldier remained. The captain of the group, his armor thicker, his weapon larger. He stepped forward slowly, confidently. "You cannot protect them, human," he growled. "Watch me," Marcus replied. The captain charged, swinging a heavy blade glowing with plasma. Marcus barely dodged, the blade slicing a burning line across the wall. The heat scorched his arm, but he didn't stop. He grabbed a fallen shield, blocked the next strike, and fired point-blank into the captain's neck joint. The shot rang like a hammer on stone. The armor cracked slightly, but didn't break. Marcus fired again, and again. Finally, on the 4th shot, the armor shattered. The captain stumbled, his blade falling from his grip. He sank to his knees and collapsed. The corridor fell silent, except for the soft hum of the ship. Riley and Saren slowly stood, their bodies shaking from shock. They stepped toward Marcus, who leaned against the wall. Breathing heavily, Riley whispered, "You fought for us." Marcus gave a tired smile. "That's what humans do." But the moment of peace did not last long. The ship rattled again as the noble's voice echoed through the speakers, deeper and angrier than before. "Human, you have made a mistake. You have killed my men. Now you will suffer." The sisters froze in fear, but Marcus stepped forward, wiping blood from his brow. "No," he whispered. "You picked a fight with the wrong human." Lights flickered. The tracking signal grew louder, and the noble ship prepared for its final assault. Marcus loaded a fresh magazine into his rifle. The sisters stood behind him, no longer just frightened victims, but determined to help. The fight was not over. It had only begun. The noble ship loomed outside the Starling, like a giant shadow with burning red eyes. Its weapons charged, glowing like molten lines across its hull. The sisters stood behind Marcus, gripping each other as fear and hope fought inside their hearts. Marcus wiped the sweat and dust from his face, his arm aching from the burns, his clothes torn and stained. But his eyes were sharp, steady, and more determined than ever. The noble's voice boomed through the ship again. "Human, surrender now. I will take the sisters. And maybe I will let you live." Marcus stared at the speaker with disgust. "I'm not surrendering anything," he said. He walked back to the control panel. Setting the ship to manual override, Riley stepped closer, her voice soft but trembling. "What will you do?" Marcus gave a small, tired smile. "Something risky." He turned to the sisters and spoke gently. "I need both of you to watch the scanners. Tell me if any fighters leave the main ship." The sisters nodded, still scared but ready to help. They had never been part of a fight before, never been trusted with anything important. But now they stood behind a human who believed in them. That belief gave them courage. The noble ship fired warning shots, bright beams of red energy slicing through nearby asteroids. Riley shouted, "He's charging the main cannon." Marcus already knew. He pushed the thrusters to maximum, and the Starling jolted forward, weaving between rocks like a bird escaping a predator. But the noble ship was huge, powerful, and angry. It followed with heavy metal footsteps through space, each blast shaking the asteroid field. Saren called out, her voice shaking. 2 fighters launched. Coming from the left, Marcus twisted the Starling sharply, letting a large asteroid hide them from the fighter's first barrage. Blasts exploded against the rock, sending debris flying around the Starling like flaming dust. Marcus whispered under his breath, "Come on, come on." He wasn't running blindly. He was waiting, he was searching, and then he saw it. A massive asteroid with a glowing crack in the middle. A magnetic core exposed from centuries of collisions. Marcus's eyes lit up. "That's it," he whispered. He guided the Starling straight toward the crack. Riley panicked. "No, please, that is unstable." "It will explode," Marcus nodded. "Yes, that's the point." The fighters followed, firing non-stop. The noble ship adjusted its course, preparing a final massive blast. The sisters held onto the chairs as the Starling dove directly into the glowing crack. Their breath caught, their hearts froze. The heat of the magnetic field made the ship shake violently. Marcus shouted, "Riley, Saren, hold on." He reached for the emergency lever. "Now," he muttered, pulling it down with all his strength. The Starling spun upward at the last second, escaping the crack. But the noble's ship, too massive and too confident, followed directly into the unstable magnetic field. And then the asteroid core collapsed. A blinding explosion burst through space, swallowing the noble's ship in a storm of heat and crushing force. The fighters were thrown away like toys in a hurricane. The Starling barely escaped the shockwave, tumbling in space until Marcus regained control. The sisters screamed and held each other as the ship shook violently. But slowly, the light faded, the shaking stopped, silence returned. The noble's ship was gone, completely destroyed. Nothing left but drifting fragments of glowing metal. Riley exhaled a long, shaking breath. "He's gone." Saren covered her mouth, tears running down her face. We're free." Marcus leaned back in his seat, exhausted but relieved. "Yes," he whispered. "You're free," for a long moment. The sisters didn't speak. They just stared at Marcus with wide, emotional eyes. Riley walked toward him slowly. "You saved us," she said softly. struggling to find the right words. You risked your life again and again for us. Saren stood beside her, voice trembling. No one ever fought for us. Not even our own people. Marcus looked at them with gentle eyes. You were never worthless, he said. You were treated badly. But that doesn't define you. The sisters lowered their heads as tears fell from their eyes. For the first time, those tears were not from fear. They were from hope. Riley whispered, "What do we do now?" Marcus smiled softly. "You choose," he said. "You're free. You decide your future." The sisters looked at each other, uncertain, overwhelmed, but also filled with a strange new strength. For the first time, they had a choice. A real choice. After a moment, Saren spoke quietly. "We want to stay," Riley nodded. "Yes, if you allow it." "We want to stay with you." Marcus blinked, surprised but touched. "You don't need my permission. But if that's what you want, then welcome aboard." The sisters stepped closer, standing beside him like a new family formed from pain, courage, and a human heart that refused to walk away. Out in space, the stars shined brighter. As if congratulating them on their freedom, the Starling continued into the dark, carrying a human and two sisters who were once unwanted. But now they had a home, a future, and someone who believed in them.